Think we okay, and we're live. What is up, everyone? This is Subject 879. Welcome to Haven of Horror. We're here with Torgo. Torgo, are you with the maggots now? Can you hear me? Torgo, you're muted. That's so weird. It was working just a second ago. Well, we're gonna talk about it eventually as soon as Discord decides to cooperate. Can you hear me? That's strange. Hold on. Because it's glowing, like lighting up, but I can't hear you. Try leaving and coming back real quick. Oh, you can't hear me either. Oh, what is happening?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Whoa, there it goes.
Whoa.
Okay. I don't know what happened there, folks.
Are we still live?
We are. That was interesting. Sorry for the technical issues there. Discord decided to be a little shit. But welcome to Haven of Horror. I am Subject 879. And this is Torgo.
I'm Torgo. It's been a minute, we haven't done this in a while.
It has, but we are back, at least for this. So, Torgo, are you with the maggots now? Because that sounds like it'd be a cool place to be.
Based on the movie I just watched, no, it does not. It just sounds like a pretty disgusting place to be.
So we are a little late to this review, but this is Evil Dead Rise, the newest Evil Dead film. We've covered all of them now except for the remake. Well, in this one that we're about to cover. So Torgo, obviously, you're a fan of the Evil Dead, but I don't think none of them are like your top, like say 10 movies, right?
Maybe, perhaps Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, but would get up there. But I don't know about the others.
Okay. See, I think the first two would probably make my top 10 now. At the very least, two is I've said for a while is like that is my favorite film. That movie shaped my taste in movies very early.
It's for sure my favorite horror franchise. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't get in my top 10 of movies of all time, but it's certainly my favorite horror franchise.
It's the only one that doesn't have a bad movie.
No, yeah.
Even its weakest one, which I think at this point, we'll get into that a little bit, but even its weakest one, which I think is the remake that I have the poster here for, because Scream Factory, it's better than most of the horror remakes we were getting at the time. I have a weird thing because it's the only one with no bad movies. Evil Dead 2 is my favorite movie, but I still think Friday the 13th is my favorite evil horror franchise. So it's very interesting.
That's fair.
Just trying to differentiate them.
Well,
But maybe that's just because Friday has more movies.
I think Friday has more movies, and even the bad ones, most of the bad ones are still entertaining.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So were you excited for this when it was announced? Because I didn't know how to feel.
I wasn't so much excited as I was cautiously optimistic and like, yeah, I'll go see it when it comes out, but I'm not like over the moon that this is happening.
Yeah, I definitely had that too, and there was also a sense of like, I know it had been a minute, but like, I was still kind of reeling from the show being canceled because like the show
Yeah.
was really good. Although I don't know. I've only seen season 3 once all the way through. I might put this over at least season 3 of the show. Season 3 has
Yeah.
issues.
I'd have to watch season 3 again. I think that's a different showrunner at that point, right?
Yeah, because
Uh,
season 2 had a lot of like behind the scenes disagreements.
yeah, I mean not to compare stuff too much like before we actually get into the what we're supposed to review, but I think I might agree with you there on season 3.
So my overall general thoughts when I was rewatching this again, and I watched this and the remake just because they're very similar in ways and completely different in others. Um, the remake kind of feels like a prototype for this in tone and violence. But this kind of feels like that first movie for more or less.
Yeah, I'd say compared to the remake in the like attempt to make a serious Evil Dead movie,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say this is the more successful attempt. Um, it's not perfect. Like there's a few flaws we can get into later, but I'd say I think the remake, from what I remember a lot about it, I haven't watched it in a while, but from what I remember about that movie, it felt a little bit more confused of what it wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one has a little bit a better handle on the tone and what it's trying to do.
So when I say I feel like this one compared to the 2013 remake better captures the spirit of that first movie is this has also a very serious tone like that first movie does, but the demons are still silly in a way. Like it doesn't forget that the demons are supposed to be a little bit goofy, but it's scary because it's happening to just a normal people. But I agree. I think
Yeah.
the remake gets too serious to the point where it strips all the personality away from the Deadites, except Mia, and even then, and even Mia. And this movie is also stronger thematically because this movie has a very strong uh, idea of it's about motherhood, and it never loses
Hmm.
that. Whereas the only thing that Evil Dead 2013 really brings to the table is something about addiction that it loses once the demon stuff starts happening.
Right. Well, I'd
Um,
actually say these movies are kind of similar in that way, where they have like a strong idea for what they want to do thematically, but outside of like the fact that the main protagonist is pregnant and then she's like protecting the kids of her sister, I don't really know what this movie is doing with the motherhood themes all that much. Like it kind of just is there. I'm not sure what it's trying to say or anything like that. It's just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it actually has something to say, but it never forgets that the central underlying idea is like motherhood, becoming a mother or being forced into that role as a mother. Whereas
Yeah.
once the Deadite stuff starts happening in the remake, we forget all about like the addiction,
Yeah, for sure.
subplot. Um, I will say though, I think I like Mia as a character a little bit more than I do. Is it Beth? Yeah, it's Beth.
It's Beth, yeah.
But that might also just because I like Jane Levy.
Yeah, it
Um,
might be. I need to rewatch the remake. Admittedly, I've only seen that one time and a few years ago.
I think if there's
Um,
one advantage Beth has, it's that she's in more of the movie, just because Jane Levy spends so long as a Deadite.
yeah, yeah, and from what I remember, her as a Deadite, she was pretty good.
Yeah, she's the only one that gets like any personality in that movie once they
Right.
become possessed. So I took a little bit of some notes, but this is a very simple movie, so there wasn't a lot for me to kind of note on without just talking it out. But
Yeah.
since we're on that comparison remake, this also has the same opening problem the remake has, where the opening is completely pointless.
Yeah, I was like, all right, how is this going to connect back? And then you get to the very end, and it's like, okay, this is like an
It
afterthought.
it feels like they had the idea for that opening title card, which is
Yeah.
really cool, admittedly, but they didn't know how to work that in with the idea of two sisters in an apartment building. So they're like, well, what if we just do this to remind people that they're watching an Evil Dead movie? Because then there's that long, space where you don't see Deadites again because we're building to it.
Mhm.
Um, I would have just cut all that. Like, yeah, it's a cool title card idea, but it also wastes like 10 minutes of the film.
It just feels so disjointed and like unconnected from everything else of what the movie is about.
Yeah, and
It's
even at the end of the day, we know the point is, oh, this will be set up at the end of the movie, but like, why? Sequel bait?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know
That the
how you
Deadites
could
are
do a sequel
spreading?
to this movie. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing more, as long as, Campbell, Raimi, and Tappert are still producing.
I'm just saying, if Ash had shown up, this whole thing would have been over in like 5 minutes. Like,
No, of course. And well, that's the thing I kind of wanted to talk about is that I think both of us obviously are we're more fans of the goofier like comedic Evil Dead stuff. And I I went into this movie with an open mind, and overall I did like it. But I definitely prefer the like sillier Evil Dead stuff. But for what it's trying to do, I think this movie is executed pretty well, and it does a good job of taking some of the things that you see in a lot of Evil Dead movies, like I don't know, like characters being covered in blood and still like over the top silly stuff like that, and making it disturbing and cringeworthy.
yeah. Well, and I walked out of this saying, okay, we have perfected the dark Evil Dead movies. Stop it. Don't do this again. We don't need another one.
Yeah, fair enough. I
I'm
wouldn't
all
mind
for
seeing
another
more.
movie. No, you don't get me wrong. I am all for more Evil Dead. Like, I will always be there to see an Evil Dead movie. I don't need this tone anymore. You've nailed it.
Sure,
It's as
yeah.
good as you're going to get. Go in a different direction.
Well, and even then, like the number one thing I want to see is Bruce Campbell come back as Ash, and I think we're way past that point. So, uh,
Yeah.
if they were to do more serious Evil Dead movies, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah. And I mean, I could be won over. I just like, we've tried this twice now. We finally got to a place where I think you did well enough.
Right.
Either just stop the franchise or go in a different direction. You
No,
know?
I definitely see what you're saying.
Um,
I'm not sure what else you could do in this franchise, though. They've kind of done everything.
I mean, you could do that Evil Dead tone where you mix in more humor because, especially if we follow this protagonist again, because she could be so desensitized at this point to this shit, where it's just like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
normal for her, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
But then it gets into the territory where I don't know if I want to see anyone replace Ash if they're gonna do a tone like that.
yeah, but I'm of two minds of that because at this point we've had almost as many movies without Ash as we have with Ash, not counting the TV
Sure.
show.
Yeah.
Um, and Ash is my favorite like movie character of all time. Nobody can top like replace him. But if just thinking of it in terms of franchise, because obviously Raimi and Campbell and all them are thinking of this now as a franchise, which it is at this point. It makes sense to because they wanted to do that even with Mia back in the day, and I would have liked that.
Yeah.
She got a little bit of that smart ass like I'm so over this shit personality in her by the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been, I mean, better than what they ultimately ended up doing, which is just have Bruce Campbell have a cameo in a Black Void at the end of that movie.
Goofy.
Yeah.
I was amazed they didn't do that for this one, even
Yeah,
if it didn't go anywhere.
Ash is not in this movie at all, and
He is not, but Bruce Campbell is one of the voices on the recorder.
oh, okay. So
I
technically, yeah.
still, or at least that's what I have read. I watched this twice now, and I didn't hear him.
Yeah, maybe they modulated his voice.
They could have. So I guess that brings us out of the actual movie contents for a minute. But something that this movie confirms, which I have long thought since the remake, the 2013 remake. How do you feel about them making it, for lack of a better word, canon? There are now 3 books. So each Evil Dead movie is canon, and there's different types of Deadites.
So I didn't really know. That didn't register with me. I didn't know that. So the books in Army of Darkness are the 3 of those are like all canon.
I don't know if they mean for it to be those, but on the tape recorder, the first tape recorder that or vinyl, it says, "I believe I have found like one of the 3 volumes of the whatever they call it here."
I totally missed that line.
Yeah,
I think they say Book of the Dead. I don't think they actually say Necronomicon.
No, it's called something else.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because it's such a different looking book. Like it actually reflects like these are scary Deadites. This is a scary Necromonicon.
Although, I mean, it is funny to think about this movie being in canon with something like Army of Darkness. just so tonally different.
Well, so this book would totally be the one with teeth, right? That bites him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's got like the sharp things at the end of the binds. Yeah.
This also does the 2013 thing where the whole movie is basically displayed in the pages, and when we get there, it magically flips to that page.
Yeah, that's
which I thought was kind of funny. So back to the beginning of the movie before we even get to the Necromonicon. How do you feel about the 2 sisters and their actresses? Because I think that they are what makes or breaks this movie.
I think the acting across the board is pretty good in this movie. I think the main actor playing Beth gives a really good performance, and the one playing the sister is like a really like menacing and cruel Deadite. Like she gives a great performance.
She is what 2013 was sorely lacking.
Yeah.
This also with the 3 books uses that as an excuse as these are Deadites playing by different rules. I really like the idea that the Deadite they are trapped in there with cannot be killed. It's basically like a Deadite Terminator.
Yeah, well, it can't be killed other than in the ways that they're usually killed, right? Just
no,
like
because when Beth Beth is the one that doesn't get possessed, right?
Yeah.
When she goes back and plays the rest of the record, the people who read from the book said, "We dismembered them, we set them on fire, nothing worked."
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but ultimately at the end, it is defeated by going through that like.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
thing.
That's an extremely situational way to defeat them, and maybe a little convenient that there's just like a wood chipper sitting in the garage of this apartment building.
That is pretty convenient.
I like the idea that we set it up where you're trapped in this building with this thing, and it's not like the original Deadites, which you can just chop up and stop it. This thing doesn't stop. It can't be stopped by normal conventional means.
Yeah, and that is pretty disturbing.
Yeah. Like I remember when I saw this in the theaters and we got to that part, I was like, it's the first time in a horror movie in a long time where I was like, well, what do you do at that point? You're stuck. Like this movie does a really good job at trapping these characters and putting them in a hopeless situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, even I was thinking at some point, like, Well, I don't know what they're gonna do, but then if they had a chainsaw or a shotgun with them before the third act, it probably would have been over fast. But I
Well, no, because
guess
they had the shotgun for most of the movie because they get it from
where
the
did?
from that old guy.
Oh, right.
It's the
Yeah.
chainsaw that shows up in the third act and we'll get to this in a minute, but it's one of this movie's many remember this.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get to
um Also, this movie has like balls and brutally like
it. Yeah,
murders and like disfigures the children.
I was surprised that like any of the kids didn't make it out alive. Like I thought that they would all be protected.
Yeah, so walking into the movie the first time, I was like, okay, I know how this is gonna go. She's gonna keep the three kids safe. The mom's gonna be the deadite baddie the whole time, and then you get to the scene where like the one starts like oozing like black sludge. And I was like,
She's
oh
like
shit.
throwing up black shit. Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. Like, are we gonna get more deadites? And then we do, but it's kind of weird because they go through all of that to do that, and then they don't really do anything. Like they just kind of get taken out
Yeah.
until the third act.
Well, I'm not sure what else you could do with them.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Aside from having
I
them
say
kill
that,
everybody.
but the first kid that gets turned has the biggest scene that just made me cringe when she takes the cheese grater.
Cheese grater? Yeah. Yeah,
And
that was disturbing.
The second time I watched that, because I kind of just was like taking it in the first time when I saw this in theaters. Great theater experience, by the way, especially when you get to like the playing the tape. That shit was loud.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, I imagine.
Watching it the second time at home, I could see better like the effect on her leg, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, just think of what that could do to your leg. It's
and then she's fine, but that's like an Evil Dead rule. Like the Evil Dead protagonist, the 2013 one literally rips her hand off.
That's true, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like what I was saying earlier about how this movie it's not the kind of thing I usually want from Evil Dead, but it does do a really good job of like making you cringe.
Yeah.
From how disturbing, disgusting some parts of it can be.
No, I agree. And then you also get into like the really creative shots. Like you have that really cool shot where it's all from like the peephole.
Yeah.
But that also brings me into the first of many of my issues with this movie.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like right before that or right after that where you get the eyeball scene.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just like, yeah, I remember Evil Dead 2.
I think my main issue, because like the chainsaw and the shotgun, you kind of have to expect it's Evil Dead.
Those are the least egregious of them.
Yeah. Like, if there was an Evil Dead movie that did not have a chainsaw, I'd be pretty disappointed. But my main issue with like the callback stuff more lies with dialogue. Like, you got to a certain point, I think, by the time all of the Deadites start chanting "Dead by Dawn" in the hallway, I just kind of started to roll my eyes.
I couldn't believe they did that. It doesn't make any sense. They're not waiting for Sun. Like,
no, it's just like, remember this?
My big one besides that one is at the end where she gets the chainsaw and then for no reason she just goes, "Come get some."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay,
that's
first
Ash's
of all,
line. I rolled my eyes.
First of all, that's completely out of place. I get what you're going for. Second of all, that line doesn't sound good unless it's delivered by Bruce Campbell. And her delivery in that scene is awful. It's just kind of like come get some.
Come get some. No, I mean, what's funny about that line is that, like, Ash, he's like this wimpy guy at first in the first movie, and then slowly over time he turns into like this badass action hero throughout the
Yeah,
trilogy.
he just doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, come get some. You've had like 20 minutes of dealing with this shit, and then you're just gonna have half-hearted be like, yeah, come get some.
Yeah. Well, and I would be fine with like 2 or 3 lines calling back to the originals, just because like, I'm a fan of the franchise. Like it's if it's just like a quick line here or there, like that's fine. I'd be fine with that. It got to a point, with "Come Get Some" and "Dead by Dawn," and even like before that, I think she says, "I'll swallow your soul" at one point, where I was just like, all right, I think I get it. I know these movies.
So I'm gonna bring up the remake again because, like I said, I watched both of them, and I'm gonna compare how they do callbacks because there's more callbacks in 2013 than I thought. So there is a scene I don't know if you remember, but when the blonde girl gets like infected in her arm,
Kinda.
like towards the end, she says, "Give me back my hand," but it's said in a way that it's like terrified because like her arm is rotting away. That's a callback that works because it works in the context of the film.
It fits the context, yeah.
Having your Deadites just randomly start going, "Dead by Dawn, Dead by Dawn," is nonsense because
that doesn't make any sense.
There's no context to it. It's just people saying things because you've seen it in these other movies. And it's also more annoying because like for like 75% of these callbacks, it's all just Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, which I mean, it's the best one, but still.
It is the best one. But it starts to get noticeable when and especially with the shot remembers. Like the eyeball shot is just the Evil Dead 2 shot.
Yeah, but it's like CGI. It looks weird.
And let's talk about that for a second, branch off here. That's where you can tell this was an HBO Max movie.
Yeah, well, I think I had the ideal experience watching because I missed I had every intention of going out to see this in the theater, but like life kind of got in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking forward to seeing it in the theater, but I had to wait for Max instead. So I watched it just today on Max, and that's really probably the ideal way to watch it.
Yeah. Like, I had a really interesting experience in theaters because it's also kind of where I've learned that theaters, I'm at that point because I work from home, I stay home. Large crowds start to make me anxious, which helped with this movie in a way because I was really anxious throughout the movie, which is a good thing. So I had an interesting experience, but I had a better experience at home watching it, like, on my TV. And I really hope that one day we can learn that it's okay to just make a movie for streaming. We used to make TV movies all the time.
It depends on the budget, like it has to be appropriate for the small screen versus the big screen.
Well,
depends on what movie you're making.
Well, and like, so I'm gonna pull up the budget for this one real quick. But like, I think that's part of what I mean is we need these like kind of movies where you don't spend up $300 million. This movie cost $15 million to make, between 15 and 19 million, and made almost 200 million at the box office.
Well, I mean, what you're saying too is truer than ever right now because we're
recording. Bombing.
Yeah, we're recording this in the beginning of July. So far, most of the blockbusters this year have been bombs. Technically.
Yeah, way to date this review, Torgo.
I don't know. We'll see with Mission Impossible and Oppenheimer and Barbie.
I think Mission Impossible, you can count me on video. Mission Impossible will be the one blockbuster that does not bomb this year.
I think it'll do maybe as good as Spider-Verse, but we'll see.
Oh, okay. One of two blockbusters, because Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse,
I think it will do good coming off the heels of the last one, plus Top Gun, whatever.
Maverick.
Tom Cruise is still a draw.
Right. And like he knows how to make a movie. He the man risks his life for our entertainment.
But and we thank him for it.
But Evil Dead.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to commend this movie on for the first half. The second half gets a little bogged down, I think, here and there, but a lot of that might just be me being annoyed because every time that they do like a remember this.
Yeah.
Once you get to the first scene with Beth, where she finds out she's pregnant, up until the mom gets possessed, is amazingly paced. You get a snapshot of this family dynamic, the sibling dynamic, who each of these two main. I'm gonna say they're the main protagonist and the main antagonist, the two sisters, who they are, what their lives have been like, and then we go, and then we don't stop.
Yep, it sets up everything in the right amount of time, pretty efficiently. So it's well executed in that sense. I do have kind of an issue though, like with when the earthquake happens. I think the way they get the book is really stupid.
It's really convenient.
It's just there, and like this kid is dumb enough to crawl in this hole right after an earthquake happens. And
well, so
I know kids are stupid sometimes, but
so both kids are really stupid. The two older kids. The little girl is like a sociopath in the making, and then this is probably what pushes her over the edge.
Oh, this is this is what does it.
So the kid that ends up playing the records reminded me a lot of the teacher from the Evil Dead remake, who takes this thing wrapped in barbed wire, opens it, and his first thought when he sees these pictures is to translate it. This kid sees a book that stabbed him, and his first thought is, I better play these weird looking records that are with it.
Yeah, I'll play these sketchy records. That'll be fine.
And then he doesn't stop it until the incantation starts, and then he can't stop it. But no, that whole thing is too easy because we set it up by having the little girl say, legend has it that this apartment building used to be built on a bank, something ghost. What are the chances that that is real? And then it's real.
Yeah. It is. That's probably my biggest problem with the movie is how they get the book is just so stupid.
Yeah. That's not my biggest problem just because it's whatever. Like,
no, for sure, yeah.
Evil Dead 2 is my favorite film of all time, but once you get to that part where the hillbilly forces them to go out in the woods, that's real contrived.
When I think I can suspend my disbelief with Evil Dead 2 a little bit more because it's kind of a farce.
Yeah,
this movie's more serious.
That's true.
That's just me.
How did you feel about the pacing though? Like, did it work for this more? Did it feel deliberately paced, or was it too slow?
I thought it was pretty well paced all around. It didn't really drag for me at all. Maybe like kind of towards the end, but that's just because like I was annoyed with all the references, and I'm ready for this to end.
Oh, but we didn't talk about the biggest reference that's not Evil Dead.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But no, I thought it was pretty well paced for the most part, and like you said, like the beginning does a great job of setting everyone up. But yeah, the bloody elevator.
Would you stop it?
I've seen The Shining.
We've all seen The Shining. We don't need it again. Stop it. I like Ready Player One more than you. Didn't need it there either.
It's weird though, because at least in that they kind of have an excuse to do it. This movie out of nowhere, it's like, oh, The Shining elevator.
Remember The Shining?
Yeah. And did they do it in Doctor Sleep as well? I don't remember.
I think so. Yes, because the villain is like seeing Danny's memories or something, and he remembers the blood coming out of the elevator.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, those.
It's more justified in like Doctor Sleep.
I think it's more justified in that, and in Ready Player One. Like, there's a reason that they do it.
Yeah, here it's just like, well, I mean, we've got an elevator, we've got an Evil Dead movie that has to have a lot of blood. Let's do a bloody elevator.
Yeah.
Also, those two kids at the beginning that come to recruit the one kid for the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna watch all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, even the bad ones." And then the one kid was like, "There are no bad ones. Fuck you. There's quite a few bad Nightmare on Elm Street movies."
There's there's one really bad one.
Well, I just want you to think that implies that this kid likes the remake.
Yeah, that kid has a shitty taste in movies.
So was there anyone in the main cast that you found that you didn't really like? Because I did I did find the one kid, the first one that becomes possessed. I kind of found them
really?
annoying.
Oh, really? No, I thought she was okay. The one that I came the closest to not really liking, just because they made dumb decisions, was the one that plays the records. Just because, like, as I talked about before, like, why would you climb in that hole after there's an earthquake? But like, I didn't hate them.
I don't think this is a negative against the movie. It's just that they play it so well. She is written as that, preteen activist that doesn't know what she's protesting against. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Am I gonna have to put up with this for the next 90 minutes?
Yeah, and I mean, like, they don't lean into that too much. Like, that's part of her character, but they don't beat you over the head with that stuff.
No, it's handled as well as you can, but I would have rather they just given her something else.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
It's just a mild annoyance.
No, I think we covered most of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest praise that I can give this movie, and we said this a lot when it came to like when we were doing Shutter Shuffle, is it's a simple movie. It knows what it wants to do. It sets out to do it, and it succeeds in doing it. Like, and it's a lot like the first Evil Dead in that way, and that it wants to be a horror movie, but it recognizes that there are silly things inherent with the premise, and especially we're so far on now in this franchise. We've had video games, comics, blah 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 blah. It understands that first movie, but I do kind of think it falls into the same trap that a lot of the sequels do. And I can't remember who it was that said it in our mutual Discord group, but somebody said the problem with a lot of these modern sequels is they're too influenced by their own franchise instead of being influenced by what influenced the franchise. That.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a good idea to go back and see what inspired Sam Raimi to make the original, and kind of just pull from that.
And I feel like this especially over like 2013 gets that.
Yeah,
with a few exceptions.
And I think filmmaking wise too, there's a conscious decision to mimic some of Sam Raimi's like signature camera work. Like obviously you got the Deadite POV in like the opening shot.
I don't know how I feel about that.
That's an Evil Dead movie. I feel like you kind of.
I don't mind that. I didn't need it to be like, oh, it's actually a drone.
Oh yeah, fair enough. And then you get some dramatic like zooms and push-ins in this movie and like Dutch tilts. So
yeah,
filmmaking wise, I think it is a little bit more faithful to what the originals were doing than the remake was.
Yeah, and this is more your area of expertise than mine. But how did you feel about like the cinematography and the sound design?
I thought the sound design was pretty good for not watching it in a theater. Like the scene where they're playing the records, that was really effective scene. And cinematography wise, it's kind of it's like I was saying before, it's aping Sam Raimi, but it's still like kind of its own thing. So for the most part, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I would say cinematography wise, I think that is one thing the 2013 remake has over this. But just because like you get more variations, like I don't know if you remember the end of that movie, but when it's like just raining blood and like she's fighting the dead, that shit is awesome.
This kind of tries to get to that point too, with like the blood spraying everywhere at the end with the wood chipper, but it's not exactly the same thing.
In garage, like
yeah, it kind of reminded me of the remake though, even though it's not exactly the same thing.
So if we do it, it's undoubtedly we're going to get another one. Would you like to see them pick up what these Deadites do? Like somebody else finds the Necromonicon from the original, so we get a more goofier thing, or just retcon, say there's actually more books so we can do different styles of Deadites.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see something totally different. I'd like to see someone maybe, yeah, get like a different kind of Necronomicon or book and see like a different variation of a Deadite. But I'd like to see someone else. I don't think I need to see any of these characters again. I'd like to see someone else come in. But don't have it be like this or the remake where you're just kind of beat for beat doing the first Evil Dead movie. Like shake it up a little bit, do something different.
That does remind me though, because I meant to ask this at the beginning of the review, but obviously this is a completely different setting than 90% of this franchise.
Yeah.
I ended up really being won over on the idea of it being in this like kind of grungy abandoned apartment building, and I think they perfectly build like we're isolated this and this by this and this, and like it does actually feel like they're trapped in this building. Did that all
Yeah.
work for you, or did you wish it had been something different?
No, well, when I first heard the premise of this movie and it was gonna be like Evil Dead in the city, I was like, what? But no,
The
they
initial premise that we got for this movie, just real quick, sorry,
yeah.
does not do justice for this movie.
No, yeah, you hear the original like synopsis for it and you're kind of like, I don't know if that's gonna work, but they made it work. Um, yeah, because just containing it to that apartment building, it makes it so much more claustrophobic. Kind of in the spirit of the original. Like we're not at a cabin, but we're still in a pretty like confined area.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind an Evil Dead thing in a whole city. We kind of do that with Ash vs. Evil Dead season 2, but
Yeah,
for budget,
that's
I'm
more like a
assuming
small
budget.
town.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'd like to see. Is just like a small town dealing with the Deadite thing, because we get a little
Yeah,
bit of that, but it's kind of just like, well, here's an episode where all the main characters that we can afford to pay are dealing with this.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we should talk about that show at some point, though.
we
It's a lot
should.
more. It's a lot more entertaining than this movie, but I still enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I think that first season is near perfect,
Hmm.
and then each season is still good, but like progressively gets worse.
I don't know. I always liked season 2 a little bit more, but the ending kind of falls on its face because of the behind the scenes drama. And
The
then,
ending is what does it for me. And with season 2, I guess we're just going to talk about the show for a minute.
yeah,
Um, I
it's
don't like that
related.
we go back to the cabin again.
Yeah, I know. I hate that because they already did that in season 1. They didn't have to do
And
that again.
Henrietta looks awful.
Yeah, I want to. No, I don't think they go back to the cabin again in season 3.
No, they don't. That's
Uh,
the only season that doesn't.
yeah, season 3 is probably the weakest.
It really is, yeah. Well, no, well,
But
Torgo, it is time for our favorite thing. We're going to rank the Evil Dead films. And I might throw the
okay,
TV show in there as well. Um,
all right.
so at the bottom of my list is Evil Dead 2013.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, that's fair.
what do you have at the bottom of yours?
I agree. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, so might be like kind of unfair to judge, but based on what I remember, it's more this, but like not as well executed.
I would
If I
agree with
remember
that.
correctly.
So I wasn't sure how to include the TV show, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to include it by seasons. So I'm going to put
Okay.
so that would be number so that would be the bottom. Right above that, I would put probably Ash vs Evil Dead season 3.
Hmm. Um, I think comparing it to Evil Dead Rise, I think I'd put it in the same place.
Okay, and then I would put Rise right above it. It rises above. You see.
The Rise is yeah, same here. Are we gonna end up having the exact same? We might
Um,
not. We'll see.
maybe not because I'm gonna put Ash vs Evil Dead season 2 right above Rise.
Okay. Well, let me think. Um, I think Above Rise, I think I'll do like a tie between season 1 and 2 of Ash versus Evil Dead.
That's illegal.
Well, that's how I'm doing it.
All right, so I just said season 2. All right, then Army of Darkness would be right above that.
For me, that would be the first Evil Dead.
Okay. And then season 1 of Ash versus Evil Dead, I think, would be right above that.
All right, I guess my top 2 then would be Army of Darkness next.
Okay. Mine is the. How do we fucking separate? Yeah, mine is the Evil Dead. I get the Evil Dead and Evil Dead mixed up.
Yeah, that's the original.
Yeah.
My number 1 is Evil Dead 2.
Have I seen season 1 of the show yet?
I don't. Maybe you did.
No, wait. I think I put season.
No, we got mixed up because I combined them.
Yeah, so then I'll just go my last 2: Evil Dead or Ash vs Evil Dead season 1, and then obviously Evil Dead 2 is number 1.
Nice.
Yeah. Definitely.
Now, where do you rank the game?
The game doesn't have a story, so I can't really rank it. Yeah. But it's a good game. Yeah. Hopefully it maintains its reputation as the only franchise with no bad movies. Because Scream shit the bed on that one. It was close. It was real close. But we lost one, boys. All right, so I'm not sure what we'll do next. We're talking about bringing back Shutter Shuffle, and we still need to do Prey. Speaking of like streaming horror films.
Oh yeah.
So we might do one of those.
We should do that with Austin.
Yeah,
because he's the Predator guy.
Yeah, if we can get him available.
No. If not, we'll just do it without him.
I might make Torgo watch like fucking House of the Dead or something just for fun.
Well, we're also thinking about doing a Scream ranking.
We are.
And eventually doing commentaries on the Evil Dead movies, like one by one.
Yeah. The funny thing is, Noah, with how fast they're pumping out Scream movies now, the longer we wait, the more we're going to have to rank.
That's true. So we better get on that.
Because you realize they're pumping those out like every year.
Yeah, I guess. I think
7 comes out like next year.
I've still only seen the first one, so I got to catch up.
Yeah. 7 comes out either next year or 2024.
So they're really trying to bring back the like yearly slasher movie.
Yeah. With the movie that satirized those.
Yeah, that's a very counterintuitive decision.
The only thing that I could possibly defend them with that is Scream 2 came out like a year after Scream 1. But that's it. Like, well, and
that's kind of the obvious thing to do is like, all right, we satirized the slasher, now we got to do the slasher sequel.
Yeah. Well, and 6 like had nothing to satirize, so it's just like.
So it's just another slasher franchise.
It's well, they're in Manhattan now. Oh,
yeah, and they really want to be Friday the 13th. They're putting these movies out yearly, and then one of them is set in Manhattan.
Yeah, they should have just waited till the 8th one.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. Ghostface takes Manhattan.
The Scream franchise makes me so sad. Like 3 isn't great, but like 2 is really fun, and 4 is amazing. 5 was okay. That's the first one without Craven, and then it's just like. Where do you go?
Stop. Just stop.
Please, just stop. It's embarrassing. You couldn't even get Neve Campbell back for 6 because you didn't want to pay her.
I mean, she doesn't need to be like in these movies anymore.
I mean, if she hadn't been in the first 5, I would have agreed with you. But I don't know. I mean, I guess.
I mean, like, I think she wants to move on.
No, she wanted to get paid.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, working is also good.
But, I mean, I guess I say that, but we're now 2 movies into an Evil Dead franchise with no Ash. So I guess anything can happen. I don't know. My gut instinct is just like, you can't have a Scream movie without Sydney, but apparently you can, even if it sucks.
Well, I mean, at least for Evil Dead, as long as, Campbell, Raimi, and Tappert are still involved, I'll go see anything that they're producing.
And they dragged poor Jenna Ortega into those Scream movies.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen X yet?
No, not yet. I haven't seen X or Pearl yet.
I thought you were going to say porn. I was like, wait, what?
I haven't seen X or what X is about.
All right, guys, that is going to be it for us tonight. That was our review of Evil Dead Rise. We will be back soon. We're not going to keep it like a consistent schedule. It's just when we feel like coming on here to chat about horror movies, I think. I don't have the time or energy to make this a consistent thing, but as long as Torgo or someone else is free, I'm always down to hop on and talk shit about horror movies. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you later.
Bye-bye.
If OBS will...